Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bvlgari's CSR conference. My name is Luisa Zargani, and I'm Women's Wear Daily's Milan Bureau Chief. I'm very pleased to be here with you all. I would like to introduce the panelists. Jean-Christophe Babin, Bvlgari Group's Chief Executive Officer. Claudia D'Arpizio, partner at Bain Company and global head of the fashion and luxury vertical. Eleonora Rizzuto, CSR director of Bvlgari Group and professor of Vaccinology at Oxford University, Sarah Gilbert. I have been covering Bvlgari for many years, and I know how committed Bvlgari is and has been to sustainability and giving back. At these uncertain times, Bvlgari was one of the first to understand how important it was to be proactive as the coronavirus was starting to spread, and donated to the Lazzaro Spallanzani Hospital research department a high-tech microscopic image acquisition system, which was fundamental to advance research to prevent and test the virus. It's a machine valued at around 100,000 euros. But before that, and also it has been helping manufacturing hand sanitizing gel to help the pandemic, fight the pandemic. But also for years, it's been active, like in, for example, in 2014, it donated 1.5 million euros to help restore the Spanish Steps. It's been donating to Save the Children, helping 2 million disadvantaged children, and for a total now of about $100 million. And another important step was opening in Valencia a new plant, a state-of-the-art plant surrounded by hills with low environmental impact. So on many fronts, I can say that Bvlgari has been very active in CSR, sustainability, environmental protection. So it's my pleasure really to be here, and I would like to introduce and hand the word to Mr. Babin, who has been spearheading most of these projects in his role as a Chief Executive Officer of the group.
Luisa, thank you very much. Thank you, obviously, to Sarah, to Claudia. I think it's very important day to day. First, because we have to rejoice. We talk about COVID-19, we talk about CSR, and we talk about an historical partnership with the Oxford University within the Bvlgari Virus-Free Fund. And yesterday, the Oxford University, together with Matt Hancock, released the news that they had qualified dexamethasone as the first and only medicine so far, which could really reduce mortality from COVID-19 significantly from 1/3 to 1/6. So Sarah and all of Oxford team, congratulations. It's not a vaccination, but it's curative, which obviously is already a major step because it will save in the weeks to come thousands, if not tens of thousands of lives. And as we discussed earlier, it's apparently inexpensive and widely available. So that now that Oxford has done that major step, not only the British patients will benefit of it, but the whole mankind will benefit of that. So congratulations to Oxford, and very, very proud to team with you is that in that virus-free fund that Bvlgari has decided to create, where you are really the cornerstone as the Oxford University and the Jenner Institute. Bvlgari has a 360 CSR approach, as Luisa has mentioned, and I won't repeat it, but there are really three areas which for us are very important and complementary. The first one is kids. Kids are the gems of nature. They are the future of humankind, as long as they can be educated and as long as they can be sent to sustainability, provided with a workable planet. So our first priority has been kids, and that's why over 10 years we donated more than $100 million to help 2 million kids in different areas of the world to get that education. I've myself been in some refugee camps in Jordan, and whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a civil war, we try as much as possible to provide these kids with the same chances as our own kids. The second area is arts. Arts, why? Because besides being an inspiration to Bvlgari, the Roman jeweler, arts is a kind of the memory of humankind. And I think that humankind will develop in the future, not only thanks to healthy and educated kids, but having clear in mind where they come from. It helps a lot, to know one's roots, to eventually foresee and envision the future in a very positive way. So arts for us is really important because it's really the memory of all of us. And the third element is health. Much before the COVID-19 spread, we have partnered for years with the Elton John AIDS Foundation. We believe that education is one thing which we provide to kids, but obviously health is the other dimension. We need healthy people on a sustainable planet. And that's why we jumped immediately into the COVID battle. First with Spallanzani in Rome. I mean, they were the first to crack the DNA of the virus in mainland Europe, and they were missing a major instrument to better understand the COVID dynamics. And then, thanks to the connection with them, we understood that there was a dramatic shortage of alcoholic sanitizers to protect the frontline medical staff in the major European hospitals. And that this was claiming about so many lives. I mean, in Italy, for instance, 10% of casualties have been the medical people. So we converted in just 3 days our perfume factory in Lodi into a gel sanitizing factory, starting first to work with the Italian government, Mr. Speranza. And then as we could build up capacity, we proposed the same to the Swiss government. Switzerland has been the second highest infected country in per capita in Europe. The death toll has been less, but in infection was emergency. And then the last capacity was dedicated to the UK, as UK has eventually been the last country to be impacted by the COVID, but probably is the worst way, as we know that infection as much as the death toll in the UK has been dire. So thanks to this small battle, apparently we have contributed to protect and to save thousands of very courageous medical staff. Now we thought that it was not enough because first gels at last are available. I mean, the companies specializing in gels production now have escalated their production, so we don't need any longer to do those donations, even though we are very happy. I mean, we donated more than 500,000 gel bottles to those 3 countries. But that the COVID reminds us that the pandemics of the Middle Age, the pandemics of the 19th century are not gone with the 21st century. What did happen is just scary. First, because it has been claiming already virtually 500,000 lives, so it's huge. And second, because besides, I mean, the lives claimed, it has also brought to poverty tens of millions of people all around the world who have lost their jobs, have lost their activities, and are stepping back 20, 30, 40 years. Therefore, we believe that as a citizen of the planet, Bvlgari having the chance to operate in a sector where we work really closely to the gems of nature and where we are very committed to sustainability, we had to step up and go beyond the first emergency, which was the gel, to participate to a global effort together with the best institutes in the world. And I think Oxford has proven yesterday with the release on dexamethasone that they are really standing really on top, to found some programs, first to accelerate COVID-19 vaccination. We are not yet there, and Sarah Gilbert will talk about later on. But beyond COVID-19, there might be COVID-21, COVID-30, and our vision as Bvlgari is really to contribute to the total elimination, a bit like and developing really a vaccination which beyond 19 could, in an ideal world, be a universal antivirus like 1 century ago amoxicillin has become de facto a kind of universal antibiotic. And so our program is founded on the one hand with the financing directly to the Oxford University through the Jenner Institute, which is a spearhead of virus and epidemic research. And Sarah will tell more about us. And on the other hand, also on scholarship. You need, I mean, to evolve in science, not only to have institutes, but to have bright talents. And those talents, unfortunately, do not have necessarily always the money to fund their studies. It can be extremely hard. And talking, I mean, with Louise Richardson, the Vice Chancellor of Oxford, we came to the conclusion that we should have another leg to the partnership, which was really the founding of scholarships of what they consider were the best talents in terms of potential, very much motivated by epidemiology, but who unfortunately, for family reasons, couldn't just finance their studies up to the PhD. And we decided so to build that program on the two legs, a direct contribution to Oxford, very much similar to Spallanzani, meaning by instruments, and then scholarships to allow, I mean, the best talents who don't have the money to do the PhD, and maybe one day to be part of the many Nobel Prizes that Oxford has generated. So maybe, Sarah, I think it's your turn, because if not the Jenner Institute, if not Oxford, we wouldn't be here today, or at least not at that high level. So yesterday, curative treatment. So when we'll have a preventive treatment? Because this is really the question that all humankind today is really asking to all the scientific community.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to start by thanking Bvlgari very much for their generous gift and their support of the work that's happening at the Jenner Institute, both in the purchase of a new instrument, which we'll be using in the vaccinology research, but also in the funding of 2 studentships. So this is a gift that's going to have an impact for a long time into the future as we train new researchers and we also develop new techniques to use in vaccinology research. So as you said, we're waiting to find out when we will have a vaccine to use against COVID-19. And it's an impossible question to answer at the moment, because in order to have a vaccine that we can use on a wide scale, we have to know that it's safe and we have to know that it works. And in order to know that it works, we have to have large clinical trials with thousands of people who've been vaccinated, either with the COVID-19 vaccine or with a different vaccine, and they don't know which. And then if as part of their life they get exposed to the virus and become infected and they develop symptoms, they will come and contact the trial team and ask for a diagnosis, ask to be tested to see if they're actually infected. And we have to wait until enough people have gone through that process to find out if the vaccine's working. And so it depends on the number of people who are being infected in the country at the time. So it's not really possible to say exactly when we'll get to the end of it. It should certainly be sometime this year. And to improve the chances of getting a result early, we are now starting to work with other countries to do trials where there is potentially more transmission than there is in the UK. And Brazil has announced that we are running a trial there as well. And this is to maximize our chances of testing the vaccine and finding out how well it really works.
But I understand that, you know, it's a long process in terms of protocol, in terms of testing to develop a vaccination. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I've read that often it could take up to 5 years. Obviously, the whole planet is fearing a second wave of COVID-19 and are very anxious. Are there intermediary steps, I mean, between today and the final commercial vaccination, which could already somehow reassure the people for next winter?
Okay, so in the past, it used to take a long time to develop vaccines against a new viral disease, because once the virus had been identified and it was necessary to start making a vaccine, it used to be the case that the virus itself, the disease-causing virus, would be used to make the vaccines. And there were 2 ways of doing that, either making a lot of the virus and inactivating it so that it wasn't infectious anymore and using that to make a virus, or making a weakened version of it so that it was still infectious, but it didn't cause disease when it was used as a vaccine. And both of those approaches had to be developed for each individual virus. And there was quite a long process of testing the safety of those, because if you're trying to make an inactivated vaccine and you don't fully inactivate it, that would be dangerous. Or if you haven't weakened it enough, that would also be dangerous. So safety testing used to take a very long time. And then you'd have to move on to looking at the amount of immunity that was generated with those types of vaccines and deciding whether it was enough. And that would also take a long time as well. So these days we use a different approach. We use what we call platform technologies, and we have the same approach to making vaccines against lots of different viruses. And that means we can proceed much more quickly, because we already know the safety and the type of immunity that we can generate with this particular technology that we use. And we are actually using a weakened form of another virus. It's an adenovirus that we use to make our vaccines. And then we add in a small amount of the genetic sequence from the new virus, the COVID-19 virus in this case, that we want to make the vaccine against. But because we've already done so much work on our technology, we know a lot about how to manufacture it, how much we can produce at a time, we know about the safety, we know about the type of immune response generated, and this really reduces the time taken to get new vaccines into clinical development. And that's why, in this case, instead of taking 5 or 10 years to get into large-scale vaccine trials, we were able to start those trials first. In the first immunizations were done in April, and by May we were moving into larger numbers, and we've now vaccinated several thousand people, and will continue in the UK until we've got 10,000 people enrolled in the trial. And as I said, we're now starting to ask Brazil to join in with the trials, and they'll be vaccinating 1,000 people to begin with, and that may expand later on. So we've really been able to improve the speed without compromising on safety by doing a lot of advanced work for new vaccine development.
But for next winter, beside dexamethasone, if I personally get the COVID, will there be already anything already you can use in some very critical cases, or will we have to wait for the final commercial vaccination maybe 2 years down the road?
So the vaccination will be used to prevent infection, not to treat it.
Yeah.
And we have to decide, or it's not the university, it will be the governments who will decide which parts of the population should be the first to be vaccinated. And that's a decision for different countries to take. We have to look at where the worst disease is. And in Italy, we've seen a lot of deaths in the older part of the population. So the choice might be to vaccinate older people first. We also need to protect healthcare workers because they're being exposed as part of their work. And so it's very important to protect them. So once we have the initial results on vaccine efficacy, what will happen is that we will apply for emergency use licensure, which means that the vaccine can be used in this emergency situation to start protecting people and stop the spread of the disease. And over time, more data will be generated before it gets to be a full commercial license for a product that in future will be sold. But initially, the vaccine will be used in the emergency situation, targeted to the most vulnerable parts of the community.
And this initially would be when, according to you?
Well, we hope to be there in the autumn. As I said, it depends on demonstrating efficacy. We have to do that.
That would be extraordinary.
Yes, that's the hope. You know, it depends on getting the cases. People in the vaccine trial have to be infected, and we hope they're then in the control arm, the ones that didn't have the COVID-19 vaccine, and we have to diagnose them and count them. And it's very difficult to know exactly how long it takes, but we hope by maximizing the chances by working with other countries, we can get there by the autumn of this year.
Sarah, Oxford is world famous, I mean, for its university dimension and research dimension. It has also a substantial budget. How important is it for you that despite this huge budget, private companies like Bvlgari do join forces with you, contributing somehow modestly in percentage of your total resources, but contributing? How important is it to have that private kind of initiative complementing with the subsidies you may receive from NHS or, I mean, other governmental fundings?
Well, as you say, the budget of the university is large, but then the university is trying to do many different things. Its primary purpose is to teach, and what we're doing here is not teaching, it's research, and it's a new area which we've had to expand our research activities in very, very quickly. And we need to bring in extra funding in these very special circumstances. So the support from Bvlgari and other companies who may make donations to us is really very important, because it means that we can now buy the equipment that we need to do the very detailed characterization of immune responses in participants in the trial. And we'll be funding 2 new studentships, which is in addition to the students that we already have, enabling us to expand work in this area. And that will obviously have a major impact on the lives of those 2 students, whoever they are. They're not selected yet. We need to go through the selection process, but that's going to have an impact for a long time to come.
As Bvlgari, my last question and my dream, is it a dream, or is it feasible according to you one day to come with a kind of universal antivirus, so that each time a new virus pops in, we don't need 2 years, even if it's very fast, to come up with a solution, but we can immediately start fighting?
I don't think we can ever have a universal antiviral vaccine, because the immune response you need from a vaccine to fight the virus has to be specific to that virus. I think the closest we can get to that is having a universally applicable way of making the vaccine. And that's what we're doing now. We're developing the platform,
with the platform, yeah.
So that we know we can use the platform against whichever virus comes along, but there's always going to be some time taken to make the specific virus that we need. But then on the therapeutic side, knowing that dexamethasone is effective in preventing deaths from COVID-19 also means that we should be looking at that type of treatment for other viral diseases as well. Other coronaviruses such as MERS, it may be beneficial there. So there will be other effects coming out of this research that could have much wider impact.
Sarah, thank you. Luisa,
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gilbert. Very, very interesting and hopeful. And I'm sure everybody was very interested to listen to these comments. So now I would like to pass on the word to Claudia D'Arpizio, but I would, a brief preface. Sustainability is definitely a driver for consumers today. They want to know how committed a brand is, and they are increasingly keen to learn about the involvement of companies and how engaged they are in sustainability. So Claudia D'Arpizio, partner at Bain Company, please, I know that you've, you've presented many studies, and so please tell us what you feel, how you feel about this, what your opinion is.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I would start that from the concept that it's many years that the consumer base of luxury is changing, in particular with the start of the millennials. That has been a changing driver for luxury goods consumption, asking to the brands a larger purpose. And this is even more true with Gen Z, that now is approaching this market and becoming very relevant for some brands. So the 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, represents already in last year 40% of the purchases in luxury, and they are asking the brands not to become more active on many different topics. That is not just really reassuring them with their history and heritage and craftsmanship, but also taking participation to the present, to the zeitgeist, and really building together the future. So conversations around sustainability are part of a broader conversation of shaping a better future. And consumers are asking the brands, in particular luxury brands that are seen as excellent in all their touch points and all their aspects of their value chain, to really stand for something in an authentic way and in a strong way, also to set the example, and really to provide another voice to the conversation around changing the planet and changing the future. So when we do analysis, last year was pre-COVID, more than 65% of the consumers of the younger generation were stating that sustainability is a key driver for them. Overall, I would say ESG is a key driver for them when judging luxury brands. This is more skewed towards younger generations, as said, but we think that there is a millennial mindset that is also, and that millennials are spreading this different change of mentality, and also the other generations are following. So like the adoption of technologies, also the awareness around this topic is growing also in older generations. And COVID, like any crisis, is accelerating these trends. So it's not creating new trends, but accelerating something that was already happening, is accelerating the awareness around the need for solving the problems of the planet, but also for shaping a better world. It's not just around, let's say, the sanitary crisis, but across the board, also around equality and social rights, and so human at the center of this conversation. And so we see that in these months, awareness is growing, and consumers are stating sustainability among the first three reasons why they advocate for a brand. So in particular, when suggesting to a brand, they are talking about what this brand does beyond the product. So not just the product per se, but really how the brand engage with society across these topics.
Precisely, and in fact, to be even more traceable, so that consumers are aware of what companies are doing, Bvlgari now is part of the Aura Consortium blockchain with other groups and other brands such as Prada, Fendi, the Kering Group, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Richemont. And this allows complete traceability not only of product, in the case of Bvlgari, for example, the gem tracing, the gold tracing, but also on donations, so that blockchain can be applied to fundraising. For example, if someone is donating to Save the Children, there's a tracking from the initial donation to the actual use of the money that has been donated. So this is another step towards an even more transparent sustainability and traceability. So I would like to now ask Eleonora Rizzuto, who is a CSR director at Bvlgari Group, to elaborate, please, on this topic.
Yes, thank you. Hi to everybody. Thank you, Luisa. I was very, very happy to have listened what Bvlgari has done, and through Jean-Christophe Babin, who is really somebody who is in the field. So thank you for this opportunity. Coming back to your question, Luisa, and coming back also from some words that I carefully heard by Professor Gilbert. So thank you, Professor. The blockchain technology is coming to us like a real tool to give a response to this reinforced awareness of consumer, and to give, by our part, a real product recognition at 360%. So you already described very well, Luisa, the main concept of the blockchain, so that it's very resuming the possibility that we have through the technology to ensure all the process of one product. So from the source to the product itself. And this is for the first time we have the chance to have a contract, not physically between two physical persons or between two juridical persons, but between persons who can be clients, who can be whatever, everybody who is admitted to this chain, which is secured and does not let hackers or other people connecting inside. So it is a very revolutionary way to trace our products, but also more. And then I go to the point. What this is more for us? COVID-19 has given us a lot of problems, like everybody in the world, but also a real chance to enlarge sustainability in a proper way. Why? because to talk together like today, we have the perception that sustainability is becoming more and more larger than ourselves, larger than life in some reason, because if philanthropy for Bvlgari means to help research centers like the one who is working, Professor Gilbert, that means that we go beyond. And consumers needs to do that. A consumer needs to know from each buying, from each also donation that they are given while buying the product, is given all the chain to the end. So applying blockchain to this philanthropy, I have to say that we are the first one in the world to have studied this option, and it's not easy because it means a transversal work for everybody, and thank our colleagues, we can do it. We can testify anytime what we are donated, each euro, each dollar that we give for research, for Save the Children. Jean-Christophe Babin has very well tested that we are at our top topics, kids, health. So these enormous agendas that go beyond the company, we can give a response, a practical response, going larger than our perimeters as a company.
And if I may, Eleonora, I think that blockchain obviously has a huge potential at 360 degrees, but it's probably, according to me, a major tool to increase the willingness of people to donate. Today, when you donate money to most institutions, it's often like financing a black box. And so you are keen to do it on the one hand, but on the other hand, you really wonder at the end of the day what my money will really impact. The first question often is how much will be used by those people managing the institution, so how much will be left eventually for the final goal, and then the final goal is something which people are learning. So I think the more transparency and the more customization we can bring to the donation, the more people will be willing to do donations. I'll give you an example. We tested it already in a couple of Bvlgari hotels where at the end of the stay, our clients in Milan are presented the bill, and instead of adding a tip, as you would do, I mean, in a normal hotel or whatever, they are proposed to add a donation to Save the Children. So you've spent 2,000–3,000 euros in the Bvlgari hotel in Milan, and maybe, I mean, because you were happy, instead of a tip, you give 50–100 euros. So as a percentage of your stay, it's really minor, but multiplied by thousands of people going to the Bvlgari hotel, obviously at the end of the year, it's meaningful. And if those clients, besides that donation, know that eventually that money went to Nepal, into a village which has been grounded by the earthquake of 4 years ago, and that Krishna from 8 years old was lost his mother, thanks to that donation, can get to the secondary school, and following the studies, it changes totally, I mean, the donation. It becomes personal, it becomes emotional, and it has a real sense of purpose. So I'm very happy that Bvlgari is pioneering blockchain, not only for product traceability, for the transparency or for supply of precious gems, but also, you know, to foster the donation attitude, just by allowing donators to be proactively part of what their donation will eventually impact on society, on a village, on a kid, on a patient, if we talk about COVID. And I'm sure that if in the years to come, more companies can provide through blockchain this kind of transparency, we'll see a big surge in donation to the benefit of humankind.
Thank you. Yes, and listening to you, I'm thinking that really now executives think forward is a must for executives, because it's no longer only about manufacturing processes and their impact on the environment. It's so much more. And companies are implementing initiatives on recycling, volunteer work, career development, education, diversity, inclusion. So, and this is a sensitive issue even more than ever now. So CSR speaks to a mindset that balances a company's business model with ecological and social concerns. And speaking of, you know, the hotels and that Bvlgari has around the world, I wanted to ask Eleonora Rizzuto, because I know that there's a new development in circular economy also at the hotels. So if you could discuss this, Eleonora, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Circular economy is something that Bvlgari is trying to write since a long time. And we approached this enormous challenging new system to conceive the economy, so also the strategic way to do business, starting from plastic. So as you know, everybody knows, also at the political level, the European Union has stated that we have no time more to leave things like they are. So observing our oceans, observing our waste behavior that we did in the past in a wrongly way, they decided to stop to use plastic mono usage of that between 2020 and 21. So what we decided is that we started from the offices, from the site, from the production site, issuing a manifesto that everybody is recognized inside our company, as well also communicating it to our consumer. We decided to reduce dramatically the usage of plastic. So just to give numbers, so we have an idea, between 2017 and 2019, we reduced about 19% of plastic. That is a very huge amount. If we go probably inside some production side, and I'm very proud to mention Manufactura in Valencia, our biggest realty and the production of jewelry, we reduced about the 15% of plastic usage, because we don't talk only about the packaging one, but we also talk about the plastic use while producing our pieces. So the transportation, the exchange of things between the various departments. And so this is part of a complete vision of what we have. So in also packaging, we decided to renounce, so to leave plastic usage between 2020 to 2021 in a definite way. And for Bvlgari, this will be the same thing. So you can imagine how it's impacting the way also organizing the work without using plastic. But this is a process that we started with 2017. So we are very proud to announce this, because we are putting in a very improvement way, so continuous improvement to get the results first in our hotels all over the world. Circular economy is something that everybody is talking about in this era, so it's a very common word, but it is composed by so many projects, so many different ways that we can reduce in 3 words, in 4 words, trying to give a definition that for us is very important. So reduce, reuse, recycling, and innovation. So while implementing these projects from the sites, from the offices, still to the whole coverage of our hotels, we are putting into practice this 4 main scenarios of circular economy. We are on the right way, I think, because we need the energy of everybody. And I'm sure, because I see this here, that any person in Bvlgari, so my colleagues, are focusing on this reducing plastic.
And I think, Eleonora, as you mentioned, a major step will be by next year, when we eliminate entirely plastic from any Bvlgari packaging. I mean, think about hundreds of thousands of jewelry packaging, of millions of perfumes packagings. This will be a major step, exactly the same way in our boutiques over the last 5 years. We have decreased electric energy consumption by more than 80%. So it's really an all-out effort of Bvlgari to behave as we would behave as a private family, to reduce as much as possible our environmental impact, to contribute, I mean, modestly to a better planet, hoping and believing that if millions of companies join us, as many have done already, this will eventually, from a small drop, become a river, which in turn will create a big ocean and contribute eventually, besides the government subsidies, which are not always easy to coordinate, that the private sector will be eventually the main driver of sustainability.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have another question for Claudia D'Arpizio, but I would like to let everyone attending know that if they want to submit questions, we're happy to answer as many as possible. So Claudia D'Arpizio, one more question about purchasing behavior and consumer mindset. I imagine that now, after the prolonged lockdown and all these moments of fear and worries and concerns about the future, what is the mindset today? How do you think that the consumers are even more interested in sustainability, in environmental protection, or are the concerns other because there's more fear about losing your job or the economy? You're on mute, Claudia. You're on mute.
Sorry. No, as I was saying before, the COVID crisis is accelerating the awareness around these topics. But yes, it's true that there is a large topic around humanity, let's say, at the center, that is not just environmental sustainability, but also inclusion, social rights, and also equality. And I think that all the awareness around this topic is growing. And I think that luxury players need really to question themselves around this topic, also to better tune their purpose. And even if all the CEOs are talking about these topics and how much these topics are important and are launching initiatives, it's still always difficult to really achieve true results. And many of the initiatives are diluted after years of attempts, because like I think Monsieur Babin can testify, you need to be perseverant and to be resilient. And this COVID may repurpose some of the priorities for many companies that will struggle with cash and will struggle with really their economics to fulfill the promises that they did around sustainability. So I think that this period will be challenging also to really keep the bar straight on these topics. And to add on what Eleonora was saying, I really think that what we are learning from people like Professor Gilbert that are using the research in every day of their life is that also these brands that have a great treasure, that is creativity applied to research, they need to really work around creativity to think to sustainable products and to sustainable ways of working since the inception. So really entering into a new world where already the product and how we work and how we live is already conceived in a more sustainable way. And creativity can play an important role to add emotions to this topic.
Thank you. I would like to thank all panelists and all attendees. It was a real pleasure, and till the next one.
Thank you, Luisa.
Have a good day.
Fantastic. Sarah, Eleonora, Claudia. Really, from all my heart, because it's really a team achievement. And I'm sure that this is the first one, but I promise you that we'll have further webinar on CSR. It's, as Claudia underlined it, it's a major theme. Kids, health, arts are also, I think, major pillars of what makes the difference between a human being and animals. And therefore, I think that really, this is really a first. I hope that the viewers have enjoyed it. I hope that we'll receive also some comments criticizing and so that we improve or we address some topics that obviously we couldn't address in just 1 hour, just because we want this to become a rendezvous and not only a one-off initiative. So thank you, everyone, and see you soon then.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.